And now for the tale of the tape in this heavyweight showdown between the Vampire Coast, who shall be led by the saltiest of all lords, Aranessa's Hallspite, and the Empire, who's going to be helmed by Volkmar the Grim, and if memory serves, I believe he's going to be on horseback. It would seem he left his pimp wagon at home. So as far as the build goes, we're not going to be using Invocation to Heck, no summons. We're actually going to be using Lore of Death as well as Aranessa's Hallspite. So I just want to kind of experiment with Vampire Coast a little bit and see how they function without the summons. Are there other builds that are a little bit more viable, maybe not as reliant on healing? So in this build, we're going to be using Aranessa, and I don't think she's as good as Count Noctilus, but nonetheless, I feel like she has a really good niche in a couple matchups. So firstly, against the Empire, I feel like she's really good. Oftentimes, the Empire is going to be having a Cav coming in, so Empire Knights and Knights of the Blazing Sun, and they'll be landing with Karl Franz and Boris Todbringer and these other characters. So being able to net them in her Fisherman's Net, which I believe it's called, it's like Spearfisher's Net or something like that. It cannot target flying units, but I believe if the unit does land on the ground, you can then net them. You just can't target them while they're up in the skies. So it's pretty good against the Knights, like I said. Volkmar the Grim, if they have a caster who gets a little bit out of position, you throw the Spear Net, you shoot them down with your guns. It gives you some really good utility, but the main reason I really like Aranessa in this matchup is because of the Krakens Bane. So the Krakens Bane gives all nearby allies within a 40-meter radius +5 melee attack, which is already really good for Mourngulls. But more importantly, it makes the Mourngulls just so damn good because it gives them a bonus first large of 8. Now, a lot of units that are true bonus first large units have something between, 8 and 16, or, on the more elite ones, like in the 20s. But for the most part, it's going to give a bonus first large of 8, which is very powerful. These Mourngulls who are, bonus first infantry, suddenly are actually really good against big targets. So if they're coming in with an Imperial Griffin, Knights of the Blazing Sun, Empire Knights, these guys can actually cut them down really quick. I mean, their stats are really solid. So having 100 weapon strength, a bonus first large, makes them just like these monsters. And they also heal when they're in melee combat. So I really like that synergy with Aranessa. You run her around in a defensive goon squad, you take out the high value targets with the Spearfisher's Net and your Mourngulls, and you just do it to it. So for the front line, it's just going to be standard chaff. We just have the Tide of Skilled as well as the Zombie Pirate Deckhand mobs. Let me just move my chair here real quick. Zombie Pirate Gunnery mobs with handguns. We got 3 groups in the back, including the Black Spot. A little bit of a thin front line, but the most important thing against the Empire, in my opinion, the Empire Coast has a lot of ways of dealing with cav. They have guns, they have halberds, but dealing with crossbows is so important because one of the more typical ways to beat the Vampire Coast is just to spam range. So you spam crossbows, Free Company Militia, sometimes you'll see the silver bullets. So spamming mortars right back at them. Mortars are basically the natural counter against bow type units. So we have 3 of those in the back, and I'm not too worried about cannons and things like that. I mean, they can't shoot the Mourngulls because they have stock. They could shoot at Aranessa, but I don't think it would be super cost effective. So not going to respect that too much. So 3 mortars in the back, 3 halberds. We do also have the dreaded bloated corpse here in the forest who's going to be waiting in the trees. Now this is just a bit of fun on my end. If you're playing in a tournament or anything like that, I wouldn't recommend the Corpse Boy, but honestly, you guys will see. He has a pretty funny outcome this game for sure. So we got 2 dogs. We have some Scurvy Dogs here, one on the other side, and you can't really go into a match against Empire, powder-centric factions, or bow factions without bringing a couple dogs. It's going to really severely limit your control in the battlefield, and it's just a huge mistake. So that's pretty much my whole army. No Nehek, I guess we're in May now, yeah, so this doesn't really make sense. But yeah, no Invocation of Nehek, no summons, we're just going in. We have Lore of Death, so we have Spirit Leech and Buna, which are typically pretty good against the Empire. So for the Imperial Army, he does have Volkmar the Grim up here on the high ground. He does have a Light Wizard as well with the standard kit, so Faw's Protection, Time Warp, and Nets. In the front line, it's going to be Spears and Sigmar Suns in the middle, which is also quite good. I mean, they're going to be able to fight zombies pretty happily. Their melee defense is really high for the zombies to handle. For his hammer, he does have Knights of the Blazing Sun, so 3 groups of those bad boys, and yeah, they're going to be coming in pretty balls deep. That's going to be a lot of pressure. Free Company Militia, 2 groups of those, and he does also have the Sterling's Revenge and the free silver bullets, the silver bullets here in the back, and it looks like a couple spears. So pretty solid little army for sure. I think crossbows are a little bit more efficient than Free Company Militia, but against someone who is spamming summons in your back line, Free Company Militia are a more durable option. So I can see what my opponent is doing here, and it certainly can be very powerful. So on that note, guys, let's get the show on the road and see if these mortars can tear some of these troops up. So the mortars are going to be tearing into the state troops. I mean, look at the damage we've done to these spears. They're shaking. They're pretty beat up. We have 1 mortar targeting all 3 of these, and damn, mortars do such good damage against light armor. I mean, they've almost already paid for themselves, those things. When, the battle, they're one of those things that generate value, throughout the whole battle because they don't have line of sight issues. So they're going to be shooting up in the skies. The Bloated Corpse is going to be maintaining his sentry post in the forest, and over here on the flanks, the Knights of the Blazing Sun are going to be coming in. I move over the Vampire Fleet Captain to cast Fated Buna on them, but it's not going to be so good because Knights of the Blazing Sun do, of course, have a pretty good magic resist. We do also shoot up the caster here in the front a little bit, so we get a couple volleys here on the Light Wizard, and it looks like there's going to be some sort of witchcraft going down here, so I'm not sure what sort of spell that is. Looks like it's going to be Time Warp, so maybe he's just trying to get his troops in a little bit quicker, but I think he actually meant to cast Faw's Protection. I'm not sure. So here you can see that the zombie pirate gunnery mobs are going to be shooting at Volkmar the Grim, and oh, maybe he just wanted to get it to scoot up the Sterling's Revenge. I'm not sure, just getting that little bit of a speed buff. So we're going to be shooting at Volkmar the Grim here, just kind of trying to pop and lock him a little bit. We're getting a little bit of damage in, and the group on the other side, the Knights of the Blazing Sun, do get tagged with the Fate of Bunas. They're going to be taken down to about half health, which is quite good, especially considering he doesn't have any healing. But the Borders are just doing devastating damage. In the back, we're just, playing cat and mouse with Scurvy Dogs. Now, the fact that Knights of the Blazing Sun are chasing Scurvy Dogs means they're not in the main battle. So that is 100% a value trade for me. On top of that, these Scurvy Dogs are going to be falling back and harassing as well. So the mortars are shooting downtown. My guns are going to be shooting into the Sterling's Revenge, which is going to favor the zombies. I mean, I just have a huge amount of volume of fire, just cross-firing into the Sterling's Revenge. And over here, we do get a Spearfisher's net. So he was going to charge into my gun line, so I use Aranessa's net here. And from here, you can see Aranessa is going to be leading the charge. That's actually a pretty cool looking shot, the way she's like running in with those guys. So they all have bonus first large right now. And even the standard zombie pirate deckhand mobs here, they also have a bonus first large. So they're going to be really efficient against these Knights of the Blazing Sun. And Aranessa is actually a really powerful duelist. With Manon's luck, she has damage resist, she has anti-large, and you can see here we're going to be poking Volkmar the Grim. So yeah, we're just going to be getting in there using that bonus first large and hopefully doing well in that duel. Now, the backline's relatively secure. My opponent has gotten through in a couple areas, so these spearmen have gotten through. I used taunt on them to slow them down, to allow my zombies to maybe shamble away, which is probably a bit of a mistake. And I also charged in my Vampire Fleet Captain. But in the back, the mortars are just doing devastating damage, and the dogs are able to outmaneuver the defenses. Of course, the Knights of the Blazing Sun can't really keep up. And a bit of a tip, if you guys are playing like a build like this Empire build, for example, it's always a pretty good idea to like keep your Knights of the Blazing Sun high and tight. Make sure to not chase skirmishers away, because they'll be able to outmaneuver you. Because heavy cav typically have speed in like the 60s or 70s, 71 in this case, so it's a little bit tricky. Over here, Volkmar the Grim is going to be getting shanked by Aranessa, and the Morngulls also do have that nice bonus first large. Are able to chop into these Knights of the Blazing Sun pretty efficiently, but these guys are hitting back pretty hard. My opponent does pop the Grand Hammer of Sigmar and the Shield of Faith, and they're actually chewing through my Morngulls pretty hard with the Volkmar the Grim, and I think they are weak to fire damage, Morngulls? No, they're actually not. I don't see it there, so maybe they are because they're regenerating. I'm not sure. I'll have to check that later. Anyways, on the back line, zombie pirate gunnery mobs are going to be a little bit compromised. And, as expected, my opponent did break through the front line. So you can see the Spearmen and all these other troops are pushing in. And from here, I'm going to be moving in the zombie pirate deckhand mobs to engage these guys and try and screen them out because, there's not much backline pressure. This other group of the Knights of the Blazing Sun is going to be just slamming into here. He did actually get a good charge here on some of my other group of zombie pirate deckhand mobs, with the gunnery mobs, whatever. You guys get the picture. And he was able to actually disintegrate and shatter those guys down. So very, very good stuff there. But the other group's going to be coming up the pipe. It looks like they did get caught on the edge of the Tide of Skjold. And Volkmar the Grim is having a really hard time with Aranessa. I mean, the Spirit Leech is coming in. He does have decent magic resist, but nonetheless, her bonus first large, her AP is really good here, plus her perpetual Spirit Leeches. And now you can see we're not going to let Volkmar get away. He's going to try and escape, but the inflatable used car salesman lot dudes, Morngul things, going to be coming in and slapping him up. And again, they have that bonus first large because Aranessa is nearby, which makes him so damn good against Volkmar. Now in the back line, there is going to be a huge Rohirrim charge into my mortars, trying to shut those things down. But you can see here the zombies are going to be waiting for that. And zombie pirate deckhand mobs with polearms, I think, are one of the best anti-large units in the game for the cost. They're just so efficient. They're just such a tar pit. It's kind of like that Game of Thrones episode. If you guys saw that, you'll know what I'm talking about. But anyways, Knights of the Blazing Sun over here are going to be getting a nice little rear charge into the black spot. So the black spot is anti-large and armor piercing, so a pretty durable little back line. But nonetheless, my opponent does a pretty good job shutting down the mortar right here, as well as getting into the back line. And had he not maybe chased, the hounds across the map a little bit earlier, it could have been a lot more pressure in the back line. But honestly, I feel like this Vampire Coast build is pretty good. It really can catch people off guard because the Morngulls coming in with the bonus first large is a really, really powerful tool. On top of that, they have stock, so they're not too vulnerable against missile attacks. And Aranessa with the nets can actually be really solid against the Empire. Now, I don't know how it would go against like a true dedicated crossbow type build, but I think with 3 mortars plus 2 dogs, you're going to have enough pressure on the crossbows, even if they bring like 6 of them. I think the 3 mortars can take them apart pretty quick, depending on the map. Plus, if you're really good at your Hound Micro, getting around the flanks, that's going to be incredibly powerful. So I actually like that build quite a bit. And hopefully you guys did enjoy the chance to get to see a different build, right? We're not using Invocation to Heck. We're not relying on zombie summons, which can be quite obnoxious with Count Noctilus. It's a very different build, but I felt like it was pretty good. Now, Aranessa is susceptible to being sniped, but again, even if they come in with Carl or Boris or anything like that, they're going to get netted when they land. They're going to get Spirit Leech. We have anti-large Morngulls everywhere. We have huge AP, so I feel like we'll be in good shape, plus the gunfire. One of the main weaknesses is the front line. You can see that was the one aspect of the battle that I think was a little bit troubling for my army, is that I did get overwhelmed and I kind of had to panic and pull things. And as a matter of fact, I forgot the Bloated Corpse, but you know what? He was on vacation. It was a tactical decision. I was like, if it gets really close, I'll bring him out. But the Bloated Corpse, we're going to save him for next time. He didn't want to just go blow up for no reason, so he just decided to stay in the forest. But that was unfortunate. I really wanted to show you guys. It's like the whole reason I brought that was for the sake of the replay, but it happens sometimes. But nonetheless, Aranessa was pretty good. The Vampire Fleet Captain with Death did the trick with the Spirit Leeches and the Buners. The Buners are always pretty good against the against a heavy cav, even Knights of the Blazing Sun, but that was a really good pick for my opponent. And honestly, I did like his army. I think that maybe crossbows are just more efficient than Free Company Militia. They can just trade at a better range against the zombie pirate deckhand mobs. They can outrange him, as a matter of fact, so you can get pretty good value there. So, but I did like the army. The core of it's pretty good. Spearmen are pretty solid. Knights of the Blazing Sun can be a very good pick. Magic resist, and also on top of that, they just hit like trucks. You can see they were able to melt the Morghuls even in a bad situation in which they were fighting, outnumbered heavily, right? So yeah, I definitely like some aspects of the build, but there's a couple things I would change, and we'll go over that in just a moment. But again, very well played to my opponent, Superior. We actually had a couple games on ladder, so there was a couple we played. They were both very, very good, close games. So stay tuned for the next one, and I will show you guys that one in the next couple days. So on that note, let's go and take a look at a build that I think is very, very good for the Empire. Pretty well-rounded. It might be a little bit more efficient at dealing with this. I do like Volkmar the Grim. I feel like he's a pretty good pick here, though. So let's jump over here and see what we can do. All right, so first and foremost, we're going to be going to Empire. And there's so many choices. Toddy's pretty good. Carl can be good. A little bit vulnerable against the gunfire, so you got to watch out for that. If I'm going to be going with that many heavy cav, Nets is okay, but I would probably be going with Lore of Life. I think it's just going to be super efficient here. So we're going to go with this. On top of that, I'm going to bring literally 5 crossbows. They're so damn good at trading. Yes, they're going to get torn up by mortars and whatnot, but for the most part, you're going to be okay. Now to fend off dogs, Empire Knights are really good, and honestly, Knights of the Blazing Sun pretty good as well, but it depends if you want to go for that wide build, but bringing 3 Empire Knights is probably honestly going to be fine. You just use them to stop the dogs and allow your crossbows to grind down your opponent. So from here, we can get Volkmar the Grim. He does fire damage. I actually like him quite a bit as a pick. Horseback is a solid choice. I think on his altar, he's too big of a target. We can get rid of this and keep his other abilities. And of course, you want the Jade Griffin to make sure you don't have to babysit him. So that's going to be the main element of the build here in the back line. The front line is going to be Spearmen with Shields. I really do like that pick. And sometimes it's not a bad idea to mix in Flagellants. Those guys can actually fight and grind pretty good. So we're going to get you. And from here, it's not a bad idea to mix in Greatswords because you do have to respect Depth Guard. But honestly, Depth Guard, if you focus fire them with Crossbowmen, they can go down pretty quick. So we'll probably get the Silver Bullets as well, just to give us some tools against those type of targets. Getting a great cannon isn't necessarily a bad choice, but most Vampire Coast players aren't going to present you with too many good targets, so I don't think it's necessarily worth it. From here, just this kind of pressure, you're going to be able to grind them out pretty good. You could even cut some of these Spearmen and just get some Flagellants or something. I feel like Flagellants aren't a bad pick here. They give you a little bit of durability in the front line. They can really beat down the deckhand mobs pretty fast, but they also take it right back. So this is a little bit experimental. Usually I just use the Spearmen, but let's just kind of go with this, and you guys can let me know if it works when you try it. So let's see here. So Crossbowmen, yeah, pretty much a staple. You're going to have some issues with big giant enemy crabs, so that makes me kind of want to get Boris up on his mount. He'll cost about the same as Volkmar. And yes, he's pretty vulnerable against missiles, but if you're playing the long game, I think it's going to be okay. So what you do is you can keep that. It's pretty good. Crush the Weak isn't a bad ability, and we don't need that necessarily, so it's a little bit more expensive. So what you do with Boris is you keep him back and use him kind of to defend your back line until the crossbows are able to clean up the gun line. And then from there, you can usually do some pressure. Now, if they do go with double Colossus or something like that, you're going to have to move and micro back and forth. But if you do that, you're going to be in relatively good shape. So Empire Knights are really good here. Like I said, I think they're pretty good. So you can get even a 4th one if you want to and just cycle charge into the Shadow Realm. Or you can even just get 2 of them and just go more infantry heavy. There's a couple of different options. Maybe getting a couple, a halberd in the back isn't going to be bad because you do need to defend against dogs. So let's get you, and then we can get some Spearmen, I think. We still have 375. So this would be your backline core. This is your frontline core. The crossbows are going to be shooting. Empire Knights are defending the backline. Yeah, that should be okay. I'm trying to think, these guys, you have a knight for both dogs. You have these guys to defend against Fellbats and other pressure. And if they do go monstrous, you're going to be having halberdiers for bonus first large against Morghuls and things like that. So I feel like a build like this is well-rounded. It's always going to be micro-intensive, but I certainly think it's not bad. So again, well played to my opponent. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this Vampire Coast vs. Empire game, and we'll see you guys next time. Take care.